Morning, everybody. I'm Claudio Giannotti. I am the director of the Department of Law, Economics, Politics and Modern Languages at LUMSA University. I want to give you my really warm and institutional welcome to this innovation talk. Today we have the pleasure to have Emilia Garito, and she's going to have a talk about deep tech and some insight that Domenico Nesci is going to present to you in a couple of minutes. I want to give you my personal welcome in this edition of the Innovation Talks, where innovation, sustainability, and the impact of innovation sustainability in our society, the impact is in the center of these talks. Today is very actual, the topic. As you know, The Economist has recently published a report about the role and the changes in job in the market due to innovation, due to artificial intelligence. So thanks a lot, Domenico, Nesci, and all the innovation team for having organized this talk. And thanks a lot to our lecturer for the availability and for being with us today. Thanks a lot, and Domenico, I'm going to give you the floor. Domenico, microphone.
Oh, sorry. So I started without microphone. Thank you very much, Claudio. So here we are. Actually, I started already. So thank you, Claudio, for the floor, and good morning, everybody. So today's topic that we will deal with Emilia Garito is deep tech. In innovation ecosystems, deep tech is defined as that family of frontier technologies that will shape our future in the next 20-30 years. Among those technologies, some notable are, and well-known, are advanced material, quantum computing, software-assisted robotics, artificial intelligence, biomaterials, and many others. Today, our speaker is a very qualified one, and I'm honored to introduce Emilia Garito to all of you. Emilia is an entrepreneur and angel investor. She is also the CEO and founder of Quantum Leap. Quantum Leap is a leading Italian company in technology transfer and open innovation, founded approximately 10 years ago. Innovation and tech transfer expert as well for the European Commission's Research Executive Agency in the evaluation of Horizon 2020 projects in artificial intelligence and robotics. Emilia is also Italy TED ambassador and TEDx Roma organizer. Emilia has been included in the list of 150 scientists, entrepreneurs, and women of innovation in Italy. She graduated in software engineering and computer science, and she's got a master's degree in innovation leadership at Stanford University. So Emilia, thank you very much for the time you are giving to us. Very curious to know about what you are going to say to us about deep tech today. So the floor is yours. Thank you, Emilia.
Thank you, Domenico. Thank you, everybody. I'm happy to be here with you to speaking about deep tech for 1 hour. Of course, the matter is so huge that we should take more time to speak about many examples about deep tech. But I'll try to give you some insights in order to have your own idea about this new emerging sector. So I share the screen, just a second. Okay, so what happens when deep is tech? So first of all, thinking about this name and this concept, we need to speak about Swati Chaturvedi, that is the CEO and founder of Propelix, that is an incubator of deep tech startup. Swati defined this concept of deep tech in 2014 to categorize startups in the life science, energy, clean tech, computer science, materials, chemical sectors, and all of which that are technology, but yet distinct from the tech startups that are more famous, which included pizza delivery apps. The need of Swati was just to show the great difference between tech startups and deep tech startups. Also because what we can say about deep tech startups in general is also that that are sleeper technologies. So it isn't apparent that they are going to change the world until they do. This is a phrase that I love, that Swati said in an article, that clearly show how difficult is understanding the value of a deep tech startup. But what is interesting also is that before 2014, so when this name was found by Swati, nobody spoke about this kind of technologies. It was not so famous and common. But since 2014, deep tech has captured the imagination of many people, venture capitalists and so on, and has become a global thing. But even if it became very famous, and that's a very potential to change the world, still do not get much financing interest. And we will see why. But here we speak about the name. But what about the content of deep tech? In the reality, deep tech is more old than 2014. And more than 500 years ago, the tank, the diving suite, the swing bridge, the water turbine, the humanoid robots are all inventions born from the brilliant mind of Leonardo da Vinci. Deep tech is not new. Deep tech is what you can create also if you use the same approaches that Leonardo used in the past. Indeed, in his research, Leonardo takes inspiration from the theories of other people that came before him, like Archimedes, for example, and he studied them, verified their validity, and then proposes a new solution. So study, verify, and propose a new solution are the three pillars of the approach in implementing deep technologies, starting from, for example, very hard and complex skill. So what is deep tech and what will shape in the future the deep technologies? It will be the third wave of innovation when we speak about deep tech. And many people try to give their own definition of deep tech and interpretation of deep tech. What is true for all of them is that deep tech refers to fundamental breakthroughs in science and engineering that profoundly impact industries and people's lives. This is very relevant. If you do something also in the researcher center that at the end don't impact the people's lives, you are not doing deep technologies. And it's far from being only information technology. we will see also in the video that I'll show you now, and also in the other examples. So the deep tech companies create revolutionary solutions that redefine markets and industry process. How we mean when we say revolutionary solutions? We are issued to think that our smartphone is a really revolutionary solution. So let me show you this video about avatar technology and digital twins, just to speak about something else that could be really revolutionary. Please see the video. This is the first one.
This is what a medical avatar could look like in the future. It would be based on your genes, your body structure, and your health problems. It would be your computer double, able to give a 3D reproduction of your anatomy and molecules. This pilot project is being conducted in different laboratories, one of which is at the HUG, the Geneva University Hospital.
Donc l'avatar médical serait fait à partir des images de scanners.
The avatar would be made from scanned images of the patients, and it would contain their genetic makeup. It would also contain information on the patient's lifestyle, exposure to toxic elements, for example, like cigarettes.
Computer-assisted medicine is progress. The goal of the medical avatar would be to pool together and organise all the technological information available on a health issue. The industrial partner in this futuristic project is a startup based in Zurich, where programmers are already sketching the medical avatar.
Est-ce que tu as la latéralité sur le radius?
Sur la fracture.
Dans 10 ans, ça va exploser.
In 10 years' time, we'll have a huge amount of information available. We need new technologies to process this information and combine it with new research.
Travail qui est fait dans la recherche.
In the future, with personalised medicine, we may be able to analyse computer models to understand and treat medical conditions more successfully.
On traiterait d'abord virtuellement le patient.
At first, the patient would be treated only in a virtual way. We would see the reactions to a therapy on the computer model, and therefore be able to choose the best possible with the lowest side effects.
Avec le moins d'effets secondaires possible.
Personalised medicine is a positive trend, even though for some illnesses, like of cancer, there are few certainties.
Bonjour madame, je viens vous faire la prise de sang. Ouais.
C'est vrai qu'on démarre parfois.
Sometimes we start chemotherapy knowing that unfortunately a great
That's the crux of the problem researchers are trying to solve at present.
Okay, so this is just the first example. I'm sorry that probably you didn't see all the video, but I think that you understood the idea. So we are entering in a new era with deep tech because as we see in 1980s, we are completely merged in the personal computing era, and 10 years later in the web era, and then in mobile computing, and then in cloud computing. And just now we are really focused on deep tech results. And I say deep tech results because what we are seeing now about deep tech startups and technologies are born more in advance of 2000. And so it takes a lot of time to mature the results, but now we have in front of us a lot of interesting, a huge example of the power of impact of this kind of technologies. For example, CRISPR-Cas9 in 2020 this is a genome editing technique that was awarded the Nobel Prize. And in June 2020, OpenAI released a GPT-3, that is a language model that uses deep learning to produce human-like text. In November, DeepMind is an amazing startup that solved a major protein folding challenge, and is a very interesting startup because the algorithm that they use is so impactful that they can use it in many different kind of market sectors. And the last one, very unbelievable news, is about December 2020, when University of Science and Technology of China reached quantum supremacy by implementing a type of boson sampling on 76 photons with their photonic quantum computer. This is an amazing frontier that China reached before US, and we will have also an example later about it and about what quantum supremacy means and about how important it is. And in the end, in the early 2021, so now, the first ever mRNA-based vaccine is used to combat COVID-19. This is another extreme inventions and solution came from research that is absolutely deep technologies. What's the mission? It's different than the mission that we saw in the past that is related to the tech startup, regular startup, because the mission of deep tech is about be focusing on the fundamental issues, identifying physical constraints for industry not solved for decades. This is a very important point that represent the importance of deep tech in our future. So when you speak about problems that are not solved for decades, and you can imagine that with this new advanced technology, you can solve it. You are so quickly pushed to understand the importance of this kind of technologies. And about other mission, of course, we need to speak about the mission to be problem-oriented and not solution-oriented only, hypothesis-driven and cross-disciplinary. That is another mission of deep tech. That is also a characteristic of deep tech. Really, really relevant. So when we speak about cross-disciplinary, we are saying that in the all kind of deep tech solution, we need to have multiple skills, multidisciplinary skills to go crossing and in also different market. Other characteristics are, there are many characteristics. So the first is that deep tech combines multiple risks at once, and we will see also this, and it's a problem-oriented, we already said it, not technology-driven. And deep tech situates itself at the convergence of more technologies. This is very relevant because there are 96% of deep tech solutions that involve at least 2 technologies. And another characteristic is that deep tech is shifting innovation away from digital world, that is bits, towards the physical one, so bits and atoms. What it means? This is important because sometimes we think about also artificial intelligence and quantum computing or all kind of I don't know, so exponential technologies that are only technology based on software. Deep tech is mainly physical. So through deep tech, the startups and the research centers go to develop physical products rather than software. And indeed, we have 83% of deep tech ventures that are currently building a product with an hardware component. So another characteristic that we will see in this grid is the level of riskiosity of deep tech. Deep tech is the only one sector in which you will find at the same time high level of research and development risk and high level of product market risk. So it's of course it's not easy to manage the deep technologies, and it's very different from the other kind of technology, like also biotech, that is a very also high risk technology in the research and development area, but is not so high risk in the product market area. And if we think about innovating startup, we find a very high risk in the product market phase and a low risk in R&D, because generally they don't have a long history in research and development. And the kind of startups that we can see in our daily life and that are app that we use are that kind of startup that are called innovative startup, but are more innovative about their business model rather than the technology that they use. I'm speaking about Kazoo, Zalando. There are startups that are copying also other successful startups that have low level of risk in product market and low level of risk in research and development. So one of characteristic and also method to understand what deep tech is exactly this. So high level of risk in both product market phase and research and development phase. What about the application? I said that one of the characteristic and mission is to be multidisciplinary in terms of multi-technologies. That is true. Also because it's thanks to the capability of this kind of technologies like deep learning, prediction and detection, process automation, sensor and vision, engineering, advanced materials, blockchain, and so on, that when we combine these with other kind of technologies that are enabling technologies, disruptive technology, maybe is a word that you already heard. So when you combine all these technologies together and try to find a problem to solve in different markets, so you are creating this amazing grid in which you will see the results that are this population of startups that are created crossing and coupling the technological area with the needs of a particular market. For example, we can speak about DeepMind, that is between deep learning and general sectors, that is very strong in terms of possibility to apply this technology in different kind of course of fields. Another one is Earth Science Analytics, that is between prediction and detection and energy, and again BioNTech, engineering and lab, crossing to discovering medicine. And what is very interesting that I suggest you to go to the website is New Quantum. That is a new startup that is in the middle between the semiconductors and quantum technologies with the cybersecurity market. So as you see, or probably if you go in depth of these startups, you will see that mostly of them are based in US, in Canada, or in Israel. That is true, because this kind of market already have a great ecosystem about this sector. But I reported in this slide this sentence that I found very interesting by Suranga Chandratilake, is the general partner of Balderton Capital Investment. They say that in addition to specific areas, deep tech, that Europe particularly excels, the continent's breadth of scientific research makes of scientific research makes it an ideal place to build companies that straddle disciplines like machine learning applied to life science or quantum applied to material science, for example. So what Suranga said is that as a result, Europe is home to many of the most interesting deep tech companies in the world. And this is very relevant because we started probably very late if we compare with US, but we have a potential, a high potential in develop deep tech in the future. And what about the convergence of technologies? There are many convergences that you can find in deep tech solutions. For example, we can find powerful technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, synthetic biology that converge to solve biggest business issues like process automation for materials, new chemical development via AI, via quantum computing, and neuron-machine interface, for example. But what is really relevant in this cross-fertilization and convergence between different technologies is that there are some technologies that are more impactful and disruptive, that are very strategic for the development, because are based on the capability to analyze data. And I'm speaking about quantum computing, of course, and quantum supremacy. Let's see the video about, a very short video about the definition of quantum computing. That is video number 2.
By using quantum bits instead of bits, quantum computers can make different, more powerful calculations. Imagine walking around a building. You must move from one corner to the opposite one. But if you don't have to stick to the outside walls, you can get there faster. With quantum computers, these new moves exploit quantum phenomena. There are different paths to get to the right answer and to the wrong answers. Quantum superposition lets them investigate all the paths at the same time. Things need to be choreographed. Answers destructively interfere, while paths to the right answer constructively interfere. This allows quantum computers to solve problems faster.
This is a very small representation of quantum computing, and what is very interesting about quantum computing and quantum supremacy concept is that when we speak about this technology, we think that we are speaking about software only. But as I said in the first slide about how deep technologies is physical, so also quantum supremacy means the capability to analyze and computing data that is absolutely based on the hardware evolution. So it's interesting seeing this third video about quantum supremacy, also because through this video we can see how physical is also the concept about exponential technology. See this third video. It's a bit longer than the other, but I think that you can find it very interesting.
The tantalizing promise of quantum computers is that they can do certain tasks exponentially faster than classical machines. And the quantum supremacy experiment is proof that this is indeed the case.
The word quantum computer is a little bit misleading because it sounds like a computer. And when people think of computer, they think of a phone or a laptop. The truth is the phone and the laptop and even a very powerful supercomputer all operate according to the same fundamental rules. And a quantum computer is fundamentally different.
The classical bit stores information as a 0 or 1, and a quantum bit can be both 0 and if you have 2 quantum bits, then there are 4 possible states that you can put in superposition. With 3 qubits, it's 8, 4 qubits, it's 16. It grows exponentially.
The nice thing about quantum supremacy is that it is a very well-defined engineering milestone.
In a nutshell, what we're trying to do is we're trying to show that experimental quantum computers can surpass the best supercomputers in the world.
To actually demonstrate quantum supremacy, we have these 3 steps. First, pick a circuit. Second, run it on the quantum computer. Third, simulate what the quantum computer is doing on a classical computer. We gradually increase the complexity of that circuit. At some point, it becomes completely impossible for the classical computer to keep up. Then we say we've achieved quantum supremacy.
We started building together the quantum chips to do this experiment. And then the evolution of the devices were more and more qubits and more complexity. It's very much an iterative process.
A lot of the work that we put in was not just these chips, but is also the infrastructure that you need to drive those chips. The cryostats that we install them in, all of the control electronics, software, all of this stuff is needed, and it all has to be developed.
When the experiment started, we were getting data from the experimentalists. We saw initially a beautiful straight line corresponding to our predictions.
Then, right before we hit supremacy, it dropped much faster and it fell below the threshold where it needed to be.
And there's nothing we can do because we don't know how to analyze past that. So everyone's like, oh, we're screwed because it's getting really, really bad at large number of qubits.
It's like, well, maybe there's some really complex interaction between all the qubits.
It turned out that the reason was rather benign. We calibrated a little bit better and then this problem disappeared.
So there wasn't like a, oh, we did it.
I think we crossed it, and then it wasn't clear further.
It took me like a day to realize, like, hold on, this is actually experimental data. It's kind of amazing to see, how well the theory works.
The processor that achieved quantum supremacy is called the Sycamore processor.
And it's parallel processing 2 to the 53 states, which is 10 million billion. And thus that enormous amount of parallel processing is what gives it the power.
When we run small chunks of the computation in the largest supercomputer in the world, our estimate is that it will take thousands of years to complete the full computation.
Technologies are born this way. Let's say the space age started with a satellite orbiting Earth, and it was not doing much, it was just beeping.
The big technical achievement of quantum supremacy was really dependent on all this young talent who's kind of taken this and gotten it to work at a very technologically capable level.
We have reached a new computational capability. There are certain computations, the only place in the world where you can compute those things is here in our data center at Google Santa Barbara.
For the first time, we're showing that we can solve a problem that is just infeasible to do on the biggest computers ever made by civilization.
And what's exciting is now we're ready to turn this over to the world and say, let's figure out what we can do with this.
The thing that excites me most is building a useful quantum computer. When we can give a researcher a tool that is unlike any other and say, great, figure out something cool to do with it. Mankind is pretty good at that.
So, as you see, quantum supremacy is absolutely the pillar of deep tech because it will be fundamental to do this data analysis and computation in many different fields. But what is interesting also here is that you saw this video of Google Lab, but I said that in the other slide that this game was won by China, but unfortunately there is not available video about the Chinese quantum computer and supercomputers. So thanks to Google to make available this kind of video to give to us the possibility to understand how is the level of maturity in this technology. And speaking about level of maturity of the technology, of deep technology, we need to clearly identify the deep tech life cycle because it's really, really relevant in any kind of discussion about funding ecosystems of industrial ecosystems and so on. So the starting point is that many of deep tech companies in Europe, but also in US, have their roots in academia. And this means that the first step, fundamental and important step of deep technologies, that is the experiment, is based on the researcher's lab. So the concept generation analytical proof happens only in the lab testing, where the researchers are based and are focused on their technologies, on their skills also. So as you see in the cure, you will see that going from experiments phase to prototyping phase, it's very, very risky. So in this phase, the main support that the research center received came from governments. And this is because this phase is called the risking phase. What it means, the risking? The risking means the action made by researcher centers and sometimes also with the support of industrial ecosystem to transform the research that is made in the researcher centers in a prototype. And this is not so easy. It takes a lot of time. It depends about the complexity, of course, of the research and the solution. But in general, what happened in this phase is that the team of researchers works in order to transform their ideas and their concept in something that could be tested. Because the relevant point and starting point to go to the market is the result of the test of the prototypes. In this phase, we see a lot of funding came from government, and the university also invest in these technologies, and exactly because there are their own capability and field. But in the phase between the final step of experiment step to the prototyping one, there are also a relevant contribution coming from corporate sponsors, because this is the time where when the industries can give a very important support in order to accelerate the prototyping phase. Accelerating the prototyping phase is relevant also to reach the market quickly. But it takes many activities that have to be done. So at the end of this de-risking phase, we are ready to go to the market? Of course not, because we need to have a lot of other money to start again in a different approach, in a more commercial approach. And so who is the best partner at this time? Of course, the investors. So the investors arrive in this time when they can evaluate the result of the prototype and decide if the solution is ready to the market, also not only in terms of maturity of the technology, but more in terms of business modeling. And another important evaluation that the investors do in this phase is understanding if there is really a solution to a problem. Where is the problem? How we solve this problem with this technical solution. So after this time, we are on the market and we start to grow very, very fast, as you can see. This deep tech life cycle, of course, is general to any kind of deep tech startups and new project, with some differences about timing that, of course, are physical, and it depends about the kind of complexity, but also depending about the dimension and the people that is involved in the process. And of course, another relevant point is the level of the technical skills. So what's the problem? Of course, as you can see, also in this life cycle, deep tech, the deep tech life cycle representation, the problem is, of course, and always is the time. Time for mature the team of researchers, time to apply the research, time for having enough years to study the solution. Another problem is also the finance, because it takes time, but it takes also a lot of resources. So what is important when we approach deep tech is try to accelerate the transfer from the laboratories to the market. But to do this, we need to be really careful about each step that is included in the life of the development process. And we have a tool to understand this that is called TRL, Technology Readiness Level, that corresponds to a scale of numerical values that estimate the technological maturity of a product. It is very relevant. This name was born in 1977 by NASA, that assigned values with respect to the levels of technological skills then evolving in this field. And skills is another word really relevant in deep tech. So the problem is the time, the problem is the finance. The tools to try to measure the relation between time and finance is also the TRL. And about the difference between deep tech and not deep tech startup, we see these two pictures that are very, very clear. In terms of the trend of the life cycle and of the two different types of startups. In deep tech startup, so the deep tech startup starts with extended R&D phase. So this is a big difference with the regular startup then that exploits new but proven technologies. And the deep tech startup has a higher share of technical staff. The regular one validates product market and fit as early as possible. Of course, deep tech startup often involves hardware, as we saw, and or IP. That IP is intellectual property. That means that my solution is patentable. In the case of regular startup, we don't have generally this kind of opportunity of possibility, because we rarely are involved in R&D process, and so as consequence, we are not able to patent our solution. And this is the reason, because the regular startup need to go to the market very quick. They don't have to wait to validate their product, because it's they cannot lose the time to prove their product on the market. And this approach of the regular startup reflects absolutely this trend that you will see in the picture, in which at the beginning of the life cycle, the regular startup has a sort of up and down dynamic. And only after this very irregular phase, they start to grow quickly until a point where they stabilize their growth. But what is really relevant in this phenomenon, in this sector of regular startup, is the mortality rate that is huge. As you see in pink, this is the line that represents the number of startups that died before going to the market. And as you see, over 70% don't graduate from seed or pre-seed to Series A. So only 30% survive. In the case of deep tech startup, it's the opposite. At the beginning, the curve is very low and slow, because there is extended R&D phase. It's that phase in which we need to put a lot of effort coming from government funds, coming from research centers. And the tech startup in this phase are analyzing the solution, studying the problem, and trying to do a sort of prototype that can be used as a solution, and they have to test it. After this, there is they spent a lot of time, but after this time, they are ready to go to the market, and they will go to the market very quickly, thanks also to the venture capital and the other ecosystem partners. And what you see here, there is no pink curve about mortality rate. So why this is? Because in the extended R&D phase, they will die. So they will not die exactly. What happens is that they remain in the research centers. Simply, they don't transform themselves in startup and stay to do what they are really good in doing, that is researchers. The kind of startups that are founded after the R&D phase go quickly up. This is the big difference. But if we see an example that is really close to us, BioNTech, everybody heard about BioNTech because they created the vaccine for COVID-19. But the success of BioNTech is important because it demonstrates the importance of long-term R&D, but also the role of government and the need for stronger European capital markets. Indeed, if you see the date where BioNTech was founded is 2008. In this year, BioNTech is founded as a spin-out from Mainz University, and its focus was on individualized cancer medicine, not vaccine for flu or for COVID. So they did a tailor-made immunotherapy for each individual patient based on the genetic features of the tumor. But it was an idea. They started to think about develop this kind of solution. And they take a lot of time to reach TRL6, that is another level of maturity, as we saw. In this TRL6, they developed an mRNA platform that will later be used to develop our COVID-19 vaccine. We are in probably 2014, 2013. So in this timing, no, probably it's 2016, 17. And so from 2008 to 2017, they received 9.5 million in euro funding. So all this research was financed by the government, because no industries, no venture capital could understand the potentiality, because they didn't do any kind of test, trial. They just were studying and are analyzing. Only in 2018, BioNTech took $425 million from Pfizer to develop an mRNA vaccine, but not for COVID, just for flu, the simple that you know, the simple one that you know. And we are in 2018. So after 10 years, the BioNTech attract an industry. So here we are in that kind of the cure that you will see here in green, that is the end of extended R&D phase. And so we expected that here we will grow very quickly to the market. And this is what happened to BioNTech, that from 2018 to 2019 and 20 went very fast in its growing life. They reached the maximum level of maturity in TRL9 in 2020 because they tested and developed the COVID-19 vaccine. So nobody want to give money, of course, to BioNTech in 2008. Now, after these 12 years, BioNTech is valued $22 billion. This is the story of a typical deep tech startup. But it's true, this is very difficult, so have money in this kind of life, and you see the government fund gave money to BioNTech. It's true. But what is also true is that since 2016, the deep tech investments grew from $15 billion to more than $60 billion in 2020. And this is really relevant because it represents the interest of the all ecosystems in deep technology in pushing their effort in developing this field, this sector. Why? Because with deep tech, you can solve the problem, really. It takes a lot of time and money, but in the end, we will have new, really, companies, very, very strong in complex technologies and exponential technologies. And we see here the companies that we are at the moment. Here you see two different clusters of companies. The first is the cluster about notable deep tech companies founded before 2000 that are, for example, ASML, Siemens Healthineers, that are more based in semiconductors and medical device and telecommunication sectors. And in the second part, you see the cluster of notable deep tech companies founded since 2000, so are more recent. Of course, the value reached by the more recent startups and companies are lower than the oldest one. So if you compare the value at the moment about the two clusters, completely, so it's double. So in the oldest startups reached about 500 billion of value altogether, and the newest startups reached about 200 billion. But what is really relevant in both representation is that that kind of companies, old and new companies, before 2000 and after 2000, reached their biggest level of value in the 2020. So this is the year that represents the break-even, if you want to say, starting from we can really shape a new ecosystem and scenario about deep tech. And about this, we can see also the map about the most relevant technologies, startups and companies. And of course, you see that there are United States and China that are at the best of the line. And we have also in Europe very relevant countries like France, Switzerland, Germany. Italy is not so far. Here we have at the moment 70 deep tech companies that are not a good, so a huge number, but is absolutely an interesting number, considering that Italy is much more famous for other kind of fields than for the deep tech fields. So this is the point in which we are at the moment. And how?
For interrupting you, but I would ask you to go to the conclusion if possible.
Okay, this is the last slide. It's just a conclusion about what is the lesson learned that I take with me. So the lesson learned is that we need to reimagine the world. And to give you the example about this, there is this project, that is Blue Brain project, that is to build biological detailed digital reconstruction simulation of the mouse brain at the moment. But of course, the frontier is to apply this kind of technology to the human brain. There is a video that I wanted to show you if there is time, or if not, Domenico, let me know if you wanted to do, I know, some question or project this video.
Yeah, no, maybe we go to the conclusion because it's 4 minutes to 1 p.m. and we have to close it by 1 p.m. this is the format of the innovation talks. So I would go to the questions, and actually I would put you one question, and this is about quantum computing. Very interesting and comprehensive presentation, Emilia. Thank you very much. The point about quantum supremacy, I'm very curious about what is the role played by Europe and more specifically Italy in quantum computing. Do you believe that there is a role for European/Italian research, or you believe that China and the United States are too far ahead?
Yes, I believe in a strong role of Italy for two reasons. For a historical reason, we have a school of artificial intelligence that is very well famous worldwide in the academics, of course, environments. And so our competencies in artificial intelligence started in 70 years. And we have many examples of researcher labs that worked and already are working and still are working with Google, for example. So this is the first reason. The second reason is about what we are doing now. If we think about Istituto Nazionale di Fisica Nucleare, we see that under the Gran Sasso there is a very important lab where there are a lot of scientists that are working on quantum computing and quantum supremacy. Of course, you imagine that all the scientists in the world are connected each other, so they have a common project with other research centers in Europe as well as in US or Israel. We don't know this. What we know that is at the base of research, basic research, Italy has a story, has a school, and has also enough skills to have a role in the game of quantum computing. Of course, Domenico, the point is the finance. We cannot compare the fund of Italy that Italy will use in this field, or the Europe is using in this field, with the funds that US or China put it on the table. So the game will win, unfortunately, with the people, from the countries that have good researchers and story and great skills, but also a lot of funds directed to this kind of technology.
Okay, thank you very much also for reminding us that money is important. Sometimes we believe that having very good researchers is enough, but it's not enough. Actually, then you have to, if you want to compete industrially, you need to convert research into industry, and you need the money to do it. It's a very, as you very well explained, is a very long and expensive journey. So thank you very much, Emilia, for your speech. I really love it. I mean, a lot of interesting information about deep tech that will be, in my opinion, as I guess in your opinion, will be revolutionary to the innovation ecosystem in the next 10 to 20 years. So thanks again for enlightening us about what is deep tech and where is deep tech position into the innovation world as a whole. And so thank you, you all that participated to this innovation talk. And we will, I leave the floor to Professor Giannotti to close the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just to conclude this session, thanks a lot, Emilia. I appreciate a lot your presentation, really interesting about the present and the future. I could have a lot of point to go in deep, but next time, no problem. Thanks a lot for being with us. Thanks a lot for your presentation, and thanks a lot to Domenico, who has organized this meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Claudio. Thank you, Domenico.